So today, Scott Talley coming to you from the worldwide headquarters of Network in Action. We have Ms. Bery Crispin with us. Bery, welcome.
Thank you.
Bery is with a Sacred Choice Church and Funeral LLC.
Correct.
But I'm really excited about this today because Bery is doing something that very, very few people in the country are doing. And it's the typical entrepreneurial story where she saw a need and set out to fill it. So welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate you having me.
No, we're really excited. So, we do a lot of these, and sometimes the topics aren't quite as interesting as others. But this one is, as we talked when we met, it's near and dear to my heart. I don't know why, but my background has had a whole bunch of funerals in it. And
You told me that.
we were telling you that story. We won't go into that today, but
Later.
Yeah. But let's talk about a Sacred Choice. So you were working in the industry before.
Correct. So I worked for Service Corporation International, and the specific funeral home was George H. Lewis and Sons. And I was there for a few years. There was a need in the community that wasn't being met, and though they do a wonderful job at serving the clientele they do, there's just a bigger percentage of people that need help.
And they need that help because they started being cost out of the market, right?
Correct.
And priced out of the market.
So prices have been going up, as you know.
What's the average funeral?
Depends on what you're selecting. So it's a lot of the numbers, or where the numbers come from, are really the merchandise. And people don't know that they can actually shop that around to make sure you don't have to buy it from the funeral home. You can choose it yourself.
And you're talking about
caskets,
caskets,
all of the above. And that's one of the reasons why we started a Sacred Choice, because the consumer is becoming more and more educated. Whereas before, you would never see an urn, just out at a store. Even on Amazon, most of our clients are able to just go on there. It's the exact same merchandise that you see at the funeral home, but you're seeing the cost. It's closer to what the cost should be than what you're seeing it priced at.
So the need for Sacred Choice was basically driven by the fact that all of these funeral homes have really been purchased by one big, enormous company, right?
Part of it. So one of our biggest drivers was in the market, especially here in Houston and just in the South in general. We never thought cremation would be as high as it would be, just because, this traditional,
Bible Belt,
exactly,
Catholic,
exactly.
Yeah.
And what we kept seeing over and over and over is that cremation is rising.
Yeah.
And as it rises, burial goes down, and funeral homes have a large overhead when it comes to buildings and all of those items. And so how do you balance that when you can't charge as much for a cremation and you're not having as many funerals? So that's where the biggest difference came in. And what we saw was, if you don't need a large space, because a lot of the families that we serve have a church home, and you just need us to actually do the cremation, the things that they can't do by law.
Mm-hmm.
The church provides the books, the catering, the flowers at some point, the folders. They literally take care of everything, as they should, because those are their congregation members. And so when we come in, it's just like I said, we do the things that they can't do by law. Same thing with a burial. If the family is going to have a funeral service where the casket is present, we provide the exact same things, except if the family wanted to have the visitation at the church the day before, we can certainly accommodate that. And again, you don't need a large funeral home. And if a family wanted the traditional visitation the night before
at a funeral home,
we can do it at ours. We do have a location itself, or if they're expecting a large group of members or people to arrive, we have chapels all around Houston that will allow us. Correct, that will allow us to do that.
Awesome. So it's sort of funny. We talk often in here about how the internet has changed people's businesses, and it's even changed the funeral industry. So what I'm hearing is a person can almost like a used car or a home, they can go online and sort of get an idea of some of the costs.
Absolutely.
And then they're not always able to go to one of the traditional funeral homes and negotiate a price that's agreeable to them. So
correct.
I'm sure at that point in time, when a person's grieving, they're not really feeling like the business side of things and negotiating and you see some sticker shock up at how when you were in your old company.
You do. And one of the things that they're doing now is, instead of them being the ones to call the funeral homes, the person that is appointed is usually, whether it's a family member or a friend, they're very well educated, and they know that, certain laws require the funeral home to send you their price list or their general price list. And so what they do is they call 5 or 10 or however many they want to call. They obtain those documents, And then they just sit down and compare them. And sometimes it may be the easiest thing to read, and for some funeral homes it's not. It's a little bit archaic. And that's where we come in as well. We want to educate the public, and whether they use our funeral home or not, it doesn't matter. Bring those price lists. Let me tell you what you need and what you don't need, so that you're not paying for extra things when they try and sell you a package with a discount.
Yeah, it's interesting. So to give me an idea, I haven't knock on wood, had the role of burying anyone lately, but give me an idea, like in the traditional sense, like on the low end, average people spend what to bury a loved one?
I've seen anywhere from 10 to 15,000, and some of those do include cemetery property. So in Houston, cemetery property, as everything else, has gone up.
Yeah.
I would say maybe within the last 2 to 3 years, property prices have been anywhere from, if you're looking on the lower end, we're looking at maybe 3,000 to 5,000, and then middle end would be 7 to 10, and then from there it just keeps going up.
But you're probably not going to bury a loved one for a whole lot less than 10 grand in the traditional sense.
Correct.
Wow.
And a lot of that, part of that big number is the property and the opening and closing at the cemetery, which the funeral homes have no control over. Mm-hmm. And so if you look at the burial portion of it, not counting the cemetery, you're looking at maybe 5 to 7, depending again on the merchandise that you select.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so let's move towards cremation a little bit, because I'm I'm a typical customer. I'm 62. 20 years ago, cremation would have been not even on my radar. And now I've told my wife repeatedly, look, I'd rather be in a little urn than down on the ground. So, and not just for the cost savings, but like what is required of you by law in a cremation?
So by law, depending on whether the person passes away and they go to the medical examiner, hospital, hospice, we have to bring the decedent into our care, placed in refrigeration. Embalming is not required by law.
Interesting.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Once the loved one is placed in refrigeration, typically by that time we have either already met with the family. If they know that they're going to use this, we already have the information. If not, we'll meet with them, gather the information for the death certificate, and that includes name, date of birth, where you were born, parents' names, the informant, and of course their address. And once we have that information, we electronically send that over to the doctor that's to sign the death certificate. Now, by law, they have 10 days to sign that document.
Wow.
But typically, I can't imagine them taking more than 2 or 3 days. And in the case that they do take a little longer, we typically call the family and say, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
And then usually the family has a little bit more weight when it comes to that, and they make a call in within a day it's signed.
Yeah.
So after they sign, we can then obtain a permit from the city of Houston that allows us to move forward with the cremation.
Gotcha. And
the family signs a cremation authorization. We send that over. Everything's verified, make sure it's perfect, and it takes place that way.
Wow. And so you really are providing a full service from picking up the deceased family
Correct.
Member, bringing them to your facility, taking care of the permit, everything that has to happen.
Correct.
Consulting the family, getting the plans all set up. So it's really just like an experience at one of the larger traditional cemetery funerals.
The biggest difference is instead of the family coming to us, let's be honest, chances are you've been taking care of your loved one for a few days. You're tired, you're not sleeping, you're not eating probably. We go to the family, we go to their home, we meet them wherever is easiest for them. Okay. Same thing with documentation. We print everything, we have it ready for them to sign at the residence. And when the urn is ready for us to deliver to the family, we do that personally. We don't place it in the mail. We don't have the family drive out to the crematory to do that. We take the extra steps. Same thing with death certificates. The last thing you want to do is open up the mailbox and get this, yellow envelope. And you open it and it's, death certificate.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
it's
the little things that count. And I feel like a lot of the industry has even forgotten a little bit of
the customer service or what the person's feeling
absolutely.
At that time. It's really interesting. So what does the law say about an urn after the cremation? What are you allowed to do and not allowed to do?
Depends on what you're trying to do. So Catholic families, they are to place that urn in sacred ground. So whether it's a cemetery, there are some churches that may or may not have a columbarium. It can also be placed there. I don't believe you're allowed to scatter. So sometimes if families ask us, we just...
Yeah, I've always said put mine over Canyon Lake. That was a spot for me that I love, but I know that my faith doesn't. I'm Catholic, so I know that's not what we're supposed to do. But state law or federal law allows that scattering?
State law and federal law allows some scattering, but there are some parks, some rivers, certain things that you're not allowed to. Okay. So if a family tells me, what their plans are, and you're not supposed to, I usually mention it, but you can't control what they do after they do.
Right. So they are going to they can't take possession.
They take possession, and then after that.
I have a horrible story for the listeners. When a dear, one of my best buddies in the whole world is about 30 years old now, but when he was 9 years old, his father died, and a few weeks before his father died, he just happened to jokingly say, "Blake, if I die, I want you to put that urn right up there on the fireplace so I can keep an eye on you." And that urn stayed there for a long time until he finally realized that wasn't happening. But you be careful what you say.
Yeah.
So you're providing a full service. What without narrowing down, I understand that there's a lot of variables. Like if I say, what does a meal cost? You can go to a 5-star restaurant or you can go to Taco Bell. But like, what should someone expect with a service like yours?
So with a service like ours, if it's cremation, you will definitely see a big difference when it comes to, we have families that want the service itself, but we don't have to be present. So by law, a funeral director does not have to be present at a memorial service where the urn is. Okay. So we let the family know. However, most of the times we want to be there. We want to be present for the family, especially if it's at a church. Most of the times they need help moving things around. So we go the extra mile when it comes to that because we want to build that relationship, not just with the family, but also with the ministers. When it comes to burial, we do the exact same thing that any other funeral home would do. The only difference is we don't have a large facility because, again, we don't need that. Most families, they don't realize that, that's what they're paying for. They're paying for the overhead of a large facility that they may or may not even use because their service is taking place elsewhere. Or they only use it for 30
or 40 minutes.
Correct. And like you said, they use it for maybe 30, 40 minutes to meet, to sign documents, and that's it. So I would just say, do your research. Again, whether you use us or not, it doesn't matter because we want to make sure that the community is educated. And that's one of our biggest goals when it comes to our mission, our goal in funeral service.
So Sacred Choice is made up of 3 partners, I understand. Correct. Tell us about that because this is really an entrepreneurial story. I mean, you guys are all working together at a traditional funeral home, right?
So John Onstott, he is our partner. He was the past president of George H. Lewis & Sons. He was involved in many organizations in Houston. And again, he had this idea for a long time, but you have to wait for the right moment. Yeah. And he had just been carrying it. And once we saw that the cremation percentage flipped, it's time. We have to go ahead and start working on this. Lacey was one of the top directors as well at George Lewis & Sons, and I was their assistant vice president, and it was just, after working there and seeing things evolving, and it was an idea that could never be implemented there, and it's an idea that the market needs. Yeah. And so once we saw that need, we said we have to go for it. And we started working on it. We had already made a lot of ties and a lot of, friends in the community, and we figured, let's.
And so that journey, you've obviously got to get permitting, all kind of things. What kind of hoops does somebody jump through when they're going to open up?
So it was interesting because you have to make sure all the stars align. City of Houston permitting, then you have the Texas Funeral Service Commission, and there's inspections, and there's all these things that you have to follow. And so you can't put your name out just yet because you're not licensed. But at the same time, you have to put your name out with the City of Houston because they have to give you certain documentation. And so it was this back and forth trying to make sure that it's all perfect. Texas Funeral Service Commission was wonderful. We submitted our application within, I'd say, a few weeks after, making a few calls over and over. They came out and inspected, and of course, passed our inspection. Everything's perfect. But and then even after that, so then you have to worry about software and doing, making sure that everything, again, is under the correct name at the right time, because you can't put things out just yet until you're actually licensed.
Yeah, juggling.
So juggling all of that was kind of, it was a little intense, but we got it done. And when we saw that little paper that had our number on it, we thought, wow, we did this.
That's awesome. And so how long have you been operating?
That August of 2017. Is it 17 or 18? Oh my goodness, 17, I believe.
Yep.
And we started that August, but we had already been serving a few families. Another funeral home was kind enough to allow us to use our license under their name. And it was basically just to prove the model, to make sure that it works, to, if there were a few kinks here and there, to fix them. And we needed that license because we wanted the family that we were serving at that time to be under our name. It was a very special family to us, and wanted to make sure that, you know, that was our very first. And so it worked out, the timing worked out perfectly, and we were able to help them, and at the same time we were able to serve. And that's what this is about, serving, and it being a mission to the community.
That's awesome. It's certainly a special ministry.
Yes.
And I don't know your other two partners, but the little bit of time I've gotten to know you, you just you exude that peacefulness that people need. You really have that air about you, almost like a Mother Teresa kind of energy you put out. I noticed when I first met you. It's really true. So if you are, I hate to say in the market, but it's certainly at any point in time, it's great to be educated. And Bery is more than happy to take a phone call or an email. So give them how to reach you.
So you can reach us at our office. It's 713-637-4933, or call me on my cell phone. I always make sure to give families my cell phone, just because things happen, middle of the night, mid-morning, you never know. My number is 832-259-7755. It's on all of our business cards. All of our partners put it on there because, again, you can call us, text us, email us, whichever you prefer. And my email is Bery Crispin at asacredchoice.com. And
Crispin is Crispin.
Yeah.
And even though the actual facility is in sort of northwest, you said 290 in Antoine area, right?
We're at 4740 Tacoma Street. It's Suite A. And it's right there at the intersection of 610, 290, and 10. So we have access to freeways. I mean,
but you can service a family from the Woodlands to Fulshear to Clear Lake to Galveston.
Service families in Sugar Land, Fulshear, Galveston, really anywhere, because again, we go to them.
Yeah.
So
this has really been awesome and very educational for me. It's nice to know we have alternatives, and it's super nice to know that, you know, even in this time of need and grief, that there are options out there. So thanks so much for coming in and tell us about it. Great to see you.
I appreciate it.